Okay, so this time we're going to talk about some more factorising Year 9s. Let's say that I give you something like this, and I tell you to factorise it. Factorise means put in brackets, doesn't it? Now remember, when we're expanding, we are multiplying. When we're factorising, we're dividing. So what we need to do is figure out what needs to go in these brackets so that when we multiply them, they end up like this. So we're going to do the opposite and look at dividing. Now, we know that our x's can go at the start of the brackets because that's the letter being used. Now, we need to find two different terms. Well, generally speaking, there'll be two different terms. Occasionally, they might be the same number, like when we did the perfect squares in the last video. But this one, what we're going to do is we need to find two numbers. Okay, our two numbers that we want those numbers to add to the middle term, and we want them to multiply to the last term. Okay, so these are the two things that we need to remember. Add to the middle term, multiply to the last term. So what two numbers add to 5 and multiply to 6? How about 3 and 2? 3 plus 2 is 5, 3 times 2 is 6. And we know that they're both positive numbers, don't we? Because both our signs here are positive. So, fantastic. We have factorised, that's all you've got to do. Let's have a look at doing another one. Okay, what if I said y squared, we'll do some minus ones this time, plus 60. All right, now let's look at two numbers that will add, well, first of all, let's put in our y's. We need two numbers that will add to the middle term, so add to negative 16, and multiply to positive 60. Now, some of this is a bit of trial and error, so you'll need to just sort of play around with what different numbers you could use. So think about factors of 60. Okay, so we want to look at factors of 60 that could possibly add to negative 16. Well, 30 and 2. Well, you can't really get negative 16 out of 30 and 2, so that can't really work. How about 10 and 6? Well, that works. Now, what do they need to be to add to negative 16? Both of them would need to be negative, don't they? So negative 10 minus another 6 is negative 16, and negative 10 times negative 6 is positive 60. So there's our answer. So that's what you need to do. Spend a bit of time playing around with it. Let's do another example. So really, unfortunately, there's a little bit of trial and error. This is where knowing your times tables comes really in handy because you'll be able to recognise factors really quickly. Otherwise, you might need to get a grid out and have a look or just really work on those skills. What if I gave you something like this? Okay, now let me give you some hints. If this number here is a negative, actually, no, ignore that. I'm going to rub that out. If this sign here is a positive and this one here is a negative, if you've got one of each sign, you must have two negative symbols. Because when you multiply two negative symbols, they cancel each other out to get a positive, and that's how, and you can get a negative out of that, can't you? Here, we've got this one as a negative. The only way that you can multiply numbers together and get a negative answer is when there's one of each. Okay, so you're going to have one of each, positive and negative signs in your brackets. So we know, well, first of all, let's do our brackets, and we know that we're using the letter X. And we know one of them will be a plus and one of them will be a minus. Because when you multiply one of each, you will end up with a negative answer. Now, all we need to really do is figure out which number's which. So what factors of 15 are we going to use? Now, I've picked a fairly easy one, that the factors of 15 really are going to be 3 and 5, aren't they? You don't really have any other factors of 15. So we're going to use 3 and 5. Now, which one needs to be positive and which one needs to be negative so that together they add to positive 2? Well, if it's a positive number, we need to have the bigger number as the positive one, don't we? So we're going to make this one 5 and this one 3. Because 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And positive 5 minus 3 is positive 2. Now, yeah, I know that this is a bit tricky and it'll take a while to get your head around, but that's okay. Let's have another look at one. Let's do x squared minus 6x plus 8. Okay, now once again, we've got our brackets, we've got x's. Now, we know that this symbol here is a positive. So we must have two negative symbols because they've got to cancel each other out when they multiply to end up with a positive answer, but we still want this to be negative. So what two numbers could possibly add to negative 6 and multiply to positive 8? Well, I'm just giving you 2 seconds to think about it for yourself. How about negative 2 and negative 4? Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, and negative 2 take away another 4 is negative 6. So this is the way that we want to factorize. So I'm just going to change my color. This is the big thing that we need to remember. You need to find two numbers that add to the middle term and multiply to the last term. And the tricky thing is watching your signs at the same time. So remember up here, if this is a positive and this is a negative, you'll have both negative signs. If you've got one of each, so if you have one of each, you've got a positive and a negative, you will also have one of each here. And this is the same as the top one. So because, what did I say that for? Oh, yeah, sorry. So if you've got, sorry, not necessarily one of each. If this one is a negative sign, okay, if this is negative, then you get one of each, okay? If this is positive and this is negative, then they're both negatives. Same thing over here. This is the same as the top one. This one here is positive and this one here is negative, so they're both negatives. Okay, and up here, if they're both positives, then so are these. So both positive, both are positive. All right, hopefully that helps you guys. Keep practicing and let me know if you need some help.